These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
You have your routine, you have your process, and you just don't deviate. When you lose, you don't deviate. When you win, you don't deviate. You just sort of methodically go about your process week in and week out, and that's what I'll keep doing.
Your neighbors aren't shoveling your walk faster now?
Well, my neighbor actually does shovel my walk. Right. So I have one of the best neighbors in the world on our street, and he has a little Polaris and a plow, and he's usually up there helping me. And then I was getting body work in my house on Monday night, and I look over and he's shoveling my back patio. So when they talk about Minnesota nice, I live that on a daily basis with my neighbors.
Oh, man. Doogie, Judd, either one of you guys, what night of the week is your body work usually? When does
Shoveling is body work. Kirk, go outside and shovel your own damn walk. That's the best exercise cardio that you're possibly going to get. You see, 2 birds with 1 stone. That's my suggestion.
I would happily take a masseuse, somebody that can come over to my house, come directly to me,
right,
and give me a massage. I don't have that, but Phil, if you know somebody,
well, there's an app.
Maybe there's a loyal listener. You're more than welcome to come to my West Metro estate.
I think Randy in Cottage Grove would actually love to come over and lay his hands. You want to get those hands?
Oh, God.
See what that
Thanks,
feels
Brad
like?
Childress.
Hey, by the way, we need to track down this individual. I don't even know if it's a man or a woman. I have a good idea where Kirk lives, but there's a story to be told. Heck,
yes.
Maybe he's a loyal Score North listener. If he's watching or listening to this right now, or she, reach out to me via Twitter direct message.
This sounds like a perfect 5 Eyewitness News in-depth story here, where you go on you're like
at 10.
You're like literally filming them shoveling Kirk's sidewalk. I love.
I'm
this.
in. Get inside the story.
Coming up at 10.
Didn't Case's next door neighbor do the same thing? I thought after the miracle, we did that story about how the neighbors all came over and shoveled his driveway.
That is accurate, but there is no such thing as overdoing the Vikings right now. Phil, I mentioned to Judd on Tuesday, the local TV viewership for Sunday's game. Now, when I say local, that extends beyond the immediate suburbs, right? I mean, the Twin Cities viewing area goes pretty far north, not quite Alexandria, but pretty far north.
Yeah.
Goes far enough east, 45 minutes into Wisconsin, goes far enough south, St. Peter, right? So it's a wide area, but over 1 million total viewers, Twin Cities viewing area from Sunday.
Bonkers.
That is off the charts. The interest in this team is, now I'm not going to say it's second to none, right? To me, it's comparable to whether it's 09, 98, but now with social media, everything, in the last, decade plus, even after the miracle heading into that Eagles game, I don't think interest has really touched this level.
It's not, and it's only going to, if they keep winning, obviously, it's only going to keep increasing. By the way, this is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment therapy. On Thursdays, speculation.
Yes, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday.
To all who celebrate. That's Doogie.
All who celebrate, Phil. What do you mean? If you're watching or listening to this, you celebrate. You need to embrace this lifestyle. If you clicked on this
you put
podcast,
a tie on, you're jacked up.
I've got a doozy for
the
you
wife
guys
dressed
here.
me this morning.
She did a good job. Look at
There's
you
nothing
right
wrong
now.
with that.
Yeah, no, we have to
Laura,
do some
nice
TV
work.
promo shoot stuff. So, yeah, this is the rare time I've got the suit and tie on.
So Doogie's part of the 5 Eyewitness News sports team. You can find him also on the Scoop podcast and on Mackey and Judd twice a week with Scoop Sessions, Score North YouTube channel. So I'm going to spring this on you guys. It is speculative.
Speculation.
We've combed through, and we're going to do another deep dive today, kind of the latest on Kirk Cousins with our State of the Offense episode on Purple Daily. We're going to rank NFL quarterbacks later today on Mackey and Judd. So Kirk is having, just back of the football card statistically, the worst season of his career. But in some of the high leverage categories, like fourth quarter comebacks, there's a few other ones that, if you just look at last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime, he has a massive passer rating compared to some of the other times during the game. So overall, his numbers aren't what they are throughout his career, but he's kind of giving you those numbers and the performance and maybe even the leadership in the moments that matter most. And so here's my question for you guys. He's 34 years old, still looks pretty healthy. He's getting in-home therapy on Tuesday and Wednesdays.
He's got a 6-pack.
Right? He does. Maybe an 8-pack.
It might be an 8-pack,
right?
yeah.
And he's going into a lame duck contract year. Yet again, he likes the short-term contracts, but the next year is the last year of his contract. Where do you think they stand right now? Do you think there's any sort of preliminary discussions happening? Because I don't think you're going to just, he's not going to want to play a lame duck year. He wants to keep tacking on years. So is there any thought right now, based on how well the Vikings are performing with Kirk Cousins at the helm, to another extension?
Well, my sense right now, Phil, is no. Like, his agent, I know, is knee-deep in some college recruiting, right? Some guys that are on the fence. Should I go pro? Should I not go pro? Like, it's a busy time for his agent, other agents, when it comes to the draft. So I don't sense that there's actual dialogue going on. But the way this thing is trending, like, I wouldn't put it past the Vikings having some interest in February, March, after the season, before OTAs ramp up next April. I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings do yet another extension with him.
I think part of it's going to depend mightily on how this looks at the end. Because I think that the whole thing seems like a quarterback experiment on O'Connell's part to a certain point to see how far he can get this guy. Because, I mean, he has, to his credit, and I didn't think it was possible, he has changed him a lot. So, Phil, I don't think your question can be answered until we've seen the playoffs and how those look. If those look good, and he might not win a championship, certainly, but let's just say that Kirk gets there and plays and does what O'Connell wants, I think the opportunity of an extension goes up. If it flames out, I'd be curious, because at some point in time, O'Connell is going to want to get his guy, like his own guy, develop that guy, younger player, rookie contract. So I think the answer to your question is it depends how this thing looks after the season.
Well, I'm definitely curious to see how it looks. Jed, I'll never forget you and I in the Superdome press box, January of 2010.
Yeah.
You came up to me middle of that game and said, just wait. This thing is going to unravel. Brett Favre is going to do something stupid.
I said that at my birthday party at the bar on November, I think, 13th of 2009. And then when Favre threw the pick, I ran up, grabbed you by the shoulders and said, see, I told you.
That's right, yeah.
Sadistic.
Where was that birthday? Yeah. Was it over in West End?
Yes, it was at what is now Kieran's. It was Cooper.
Yes, that's right. I remember the birthday party. Yes.
There's a scoop for you, folks. Birthday party 40. I celebrated it at Cooper. West End.
You ran up to me 2 months later in that press box in New Orleans and said, I told you so.
Yep. And then I ran back down.
So do you get the same sadistic sort of cryptic sense about this year? Do you feel like there's a Brett Favre throw
That was
across
the question
his
I was getting to. Thank you, Phil, for laying it out better than I could.
You know what? I have no idea, because Kirk has been changed so much by O'Connell. Like, this was Favre by that point. I mean, Brett Favre was not changing. And Childress, of all people, was not going to change him. So my premonition was, I know what Brett Favre does. Now, the question is, do I think that Kirk Cousins has one of his submarine, the team games in him? That I don't know, because O'Connell's done such a good job that I do have a faith that he is on the right track.
And let me add something to this too, because I think for the first 3 or 4, for sure the first 3 years of the Kirk Cousins Vikings era, almost every time they would face a really good defense or a road game or prime time, like one of these big boy moments of, all right, here it is. This is your chance to go toe to toe and show what you got. They got knocked out almost every time, literally. Like he only had, and the team too, they only had 3 instances where they came back in the fourth quarter in the first 3 years of Cousins. They had a couple really good defenses in there too, so you can't just blame defense. It just never happened. He couldn't win primetime games. We went through the list of road games against. They were like 4-16 or something in road games against teams that finished the season with a winning record. It didn't happen. But the last couple years, the fourth quarter comebacks are way up. Just the eye test and the way that they, like this year specifically, he's had some games where he'll throw a couple bad interceptions or be flustered early. The Commanders game, the Bills game, that second pick was one of the worst picks you'll ever see. And he's got a dust himself off ability that maybe Kevin O'Connell is helping with. And so I guess my grand rambling point here is the expectation isn't that he wins all of those games. They're going to lose that game against the Bills. They're going to lose games like that. But the expectation should be you're fighting in a lot of those games and you're winning some. And that's kind of where they're at. And that's why I've backed off Cousins. People are like, you've changed your tune on Cousins. Yeah, because he's fighting in these games and dusting himself off more than he ever has before. Does it guarantee you're going to win all of them going forward? No. But does it give you hope that they can win these games in the playoffs? I say yes, Dukes.
Well, I say yes as well. He has made some of the best throws of his career. Heck, just in the last few weeks, the touchdown pass to KJ Osborne in the Arizona game, the throw to Jefferson, taking that hit from Jonathan Allen in the Washington game when they're down 17-7. Jefferson beats the former Gopher St-Juste. A number of the throws from Sunday, right, including the Jefferson right sideline one. Right? I mean, we can go up and down the list. The deep ball to Jefferson in London against New Orleans. I just don't know how many of those throws he made in the past. Now, the toughness was always there. Like, to me, we haven't talked enough about just how durable he is, how tough he is. He's willing to take just about any hit. He knows it's coming, and he'll step up and make the throw. And, you know, the contact is the contact. He'll go down. But, like, there's a big-time toughness there with Kirk. I think that's always been there, but some of these big boy throws he's made, in particular the last few weeks, I just don't remember him making them the last few years.
Beyond Kirk, too, I think there's a discussion to be had here about how far the mentality of this team can go, too, because, like, that's one key thing is the feeling of this entire team right now, right? And Patrick Peterson, he's playing far beyond what I ever thought was possible here now. So
well, and remember, Judd, like week one, the rookie Watson beats him.
I know.
What was the narrative right after that? It's like Peterson's done.
Well,
what were the Vikings doing? Re-signing him?
And Watson,
what are they thinking? We thought in that moment Peterson was cooked.
And Watson drops that ball, and that sort of set a tone. And again, I think it's good fortune combined with hard work and pretty solid play. And so the question now, I think, is how far can this ride go? Because there is certainly some fortune mixed in here, but the Vikings are doing a very good job of capitalizing when they have to. And so, like, that's my whole thing. And I think what makes this fun is sort of sitting back, you guys, and waiting and seeing how far this entire thing can go, because it's clear that the ride is one of those ones that comes along every, I don't know, take your pick, 8 years, 10 years. But it's one of those rides where you're like, you know, there's something special here. But once the team starts to believe, that becomes the key thing. And I do think the most telling thing that I've seen across the board, not from a football playing standpoint, is when Vikings.com streams O'Connell's postgame discussions or speeches to the team, you can see a belief developing there that he has done a marvelous job of capitalizing on. And I know that there are some folks that don't believe in that stuff. They're like, you know, no, this stuff matters. And he is doing a fantastic job of taking what they're doing well and getting them to believe, which is where, in at least the last 2 or 3 years, Zimmer struggled mightily.
On that last point, so how about this for a name drop? I caught up with Joe Theismann on Tuesday. I can replay that conversation on the Next Scoop podcast. We caught up for about a half hour. He brought up that very point, Judd, that he watched the O'Connell post-game, you know, banter with the team in the locker room immediately after Sunday's game. He made that very point that all eyes were locked in on O'Connell. That signaled to Joe, who knows a thing or two, right, about the game, about Kirk, about Kevin. He knows those two guys real well from their time in Washington. He made that very point. He just said, hey, like, that spoke volumes to me, seeing all those guys as engaged as they were.
Yeah. So let's go back actually to January. I'm trying to think back to the names that they brought in for interviews. I mean, obviously, Jim Harbaugh.
They liked Nathaniel
Hackett, dude. He's going to get canned mid-season. There's no way that dude gets a second year.
I'm told he impressed them.
Okay, yeah. That's what I want to know.
I'm not saying like he was the guy, but I was told his interview went well.
Well, so KOC obviously impressed them the most. But yeah, give us some more insight on, okay, who else was in that mix now that we can go back and look, and how much of this, maybe you can shed some light on this too. You know, I think they spend a couple full days. I'm sure they have a bunch of texting and phone conversations. Like once they open the candidate search, they're in contact, I'm sure, a lot. But you never really know. And the fact that Nathaniel Hackett can impress multiple teams and be sought after and then be this big of a train wreck, there's clearly a gap, and there's only so much you can glean from someone through this process. And some of it's just up to luck. Look how many assistant coaches become head coaches and then get coordinators or whatever and then get fired, unceremoniously 2 years later. So take us back to January. Who else? Nathaniel Hackett. They could have whiffed on him. They didn't.
They really wanted to interview D'Amico Ryans a second time, but he declined. Let's not forget about
Raheem
the
Morris?
GM search, that they wanted to bring in Ryan Poles from Chicago for an in-person interview, but then things moved fast with the Bears, Ryan Poles of Kansas City, that is. And, there was sincere interest in hiring Ryan, but Chicago presented him with a nice, solid, 5-year offer. The money was there. He was able to do what he wanted to do in terms of stripping down Chicago. I do think some of those philosophical things he was thinking about doing, he wanted to do here, and I don't know if the Wilfs were willing to let him do that. And so, you hear through the grapevine, through your agent, through others, hey, like, this Bears offer is too good to pass up. And so, I'll jump all over it. But, it starts there, right? Like, Ryan Poles could have been this team's general manager, not Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, but then it's Kwesi, and Kwesi being a part of that process. Yeah, things moved along pretty fast with O'Connell. But it was D'Amico Ryans. Like, they wanted to interview D'Amico Ryans in person. If D'Amico Ryans had seriously chased this job, I think he would have been neck and neck with O'Connell in the end.
So interesting.
And he's going to get a job.
He'll get a job.
I guess he basically said, I don't think I'm prepared yet, which is brilliant, which is really, really smart. On Poles, what I heard was that he was their first choice.
That was the buzz, Judd.
The money from Chicago was better. And again...
Did he get an extra year in his contract, too?
He might have. I heard he got more.
Did Kwesi get a 4-year deal? It might even be in my Twitter history or something like that. Did Kwesi get 4?
The interesting thing about that, Dukes, is
because Poles got more than 4 in Chicago. I'm almost positive.
Keep in mind that Zimmer and Spielman are still being paid. So the Vikings, actually, O'Connell and Kwesi, I think, signed very reasonable contracts. And I believe it was Shooter who had the fact that right now PJ Fleck is making more than Kevin is.
That'll change soon.
That will change very soon.
I'm just saying,
he's got a powerful agent to you. That's going.
Part of this was circumstances, of who's being paid still, and what the Vikings thought that they could potentially afford. And so Kwesi and O'Connell actually are working for incredible, reasonable sums compared to what they're producing for the Vikings.
The other thing I should mention, Phil, you think about with the Cowboys coming here on Sunday, you look at their offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. Those two guys were in the mix, but Quinn, Moore, it never moved on either of those fronts. Yeah, they were in that mix. There were Zoom conversations, but I never got the sense it was going to get to the point of, like, the Vikings wanted Dan Quinn to fly into town for an in-person interview, or they were going to go to Dallas. Like, they went out to L.A. to interview O'Connell, so they were willing to hop on the jet, go somewhere. But I never got the sense that Quinn was like really, really, really in their mix.
Yeah. We'll get to some injury updates here in just a second, but as we told you guys yesterday on the podcast, so this is Give to the Max Day, and I guess you could say Give to the Max week. And what we are getting behind here at Score North on Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily is 8 years ago this week, the Schoonover family suffered an unspeakable tragedy where their son, suffering from a hidden heart ailment, died on the ice after scoring a goal in a tournament, Patrick Schoonover. And so ever since then, over the last 8 years, the Schoonover family has been trying to help raise money to help identify heart defects in kids 14 to 24. It's the Patrick Schoonover Heart Foundation, and they provide free heart screens for kids 14 to 24. We asked you to raise $1,000 yesterday, and you did. Thank you. We'd like to keep raising money today. GiveMN.org/score for Patrick. That's GiveMN.org/score for Patrick. SKOR for Patrick. Even if you can give $20, $15, whatever it is, it'll help this great cause. And you can check out our interview and discussion with Mike Schoonover, Patrick's dad, on the Score North YouTube channel. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Also, real quick, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around for over 100 years, helping businesses maximize their level of success. It's like having a great offensive line for your business. They're all about risk management and protection. And like I said, 1904 they were founded. They're based in Owatonna. They have just a legacy of helping elevate businesses. They are just a great guiding hand for you as you move forward. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours.
Reckless speculation.
All right, Dukes, who's banged up? What's the latest here on the Vikings injury front?
I would not worry about Justin Jefferson, toe limited in their walkthrough on Wednesday. They'll put the pads on later today, so we'll get a better sense today with a real practice. Wednesday was not any sort of real practice, just a walkthrough. But I would not worry about Justin Jefferson, his status heading into Sunday. I did allude on Tuesday with Judd, Phil, that there was some optimism on Dalvin Tomlinson, but if they had practiced in full yesterday, Tomlinson would not have been able to go, that calf injury. Now, like, if they thought he wasn't going to be back, they would have made the IR move because he has missed now 2 games. If he doesn't play on Sunday, that's his 3rd game missed. Then with the short week, with the Thanksgiving night game, like, that would be a quick turn. So if you're not playing Sunday, the chances of playing Thursday would seem pretty minimal. So I just know going back a handful of days, there was optimism that Tomlinson could get back doing something, at least be limited. So I'll keep an eye on him later today. I'm not ready to declare him out quite yet for Sunday, but that was interesting to me after hearing that there was some optimism that he would have been a no-go on Wednesday. Then you have Christian Darrisaw, Caleb Evans, still both in the concussion protocol. I don't have the latest on Darrisaw. I did check with somebody close to Evans who told me he's feeling better, but you know, there's certain things you need to be able to do. Yeah. There's tests and all that. You know, I mean, both guys have been active on social media. It's not like they're locked in a dark room, unable to, you know, not look at their cell phone, anything like that.
They're misspelling a lot of words, and one of them is tweeting in French. But other than that, they seem fine.
Caleb didn't spell his own first name right, so I'm a little bit concerned, but he's just dinged up.
So we'll have a better sense later today on all those guys. But I can tell you, somebody, you know, for whatever it's worth, close to Evans said he is feeling better than he felt on Sunday night.
Dukes, do we know if the Vikings were involved at all in discussions for Linval Joseph, the former Viking who just re-signed or who just signed with Philadelphia, and certainly plays a position at which I think the Vikings, or I thought, could have used help, but they're making it pretty clear that they're comfortable there, defensive tackle, even with Dalvin Tomlinson out.
Yeah, I mean, he was training over a training house. Like, he's got a daughter here in town.
We're filming,
He's been here in town. Yeah, there was a lot of concern about the elbow. Now, clearly, the elbow is in a much better spot today than it was even a month or 6 or 8 weeks ago. But I know there was concern across the league about the status of his elbow. But no, my sense, Judd, is no. The Vikings were not involved on Linval.
Okay. All right. Any other Vikings-related scoopage before we move into other topics here, Dukes?
They will have scouting representation at the Gophers-Iowa game on Saturday. Senior day for the Minnesota Gophers.
Hopefully not to watch high-flying offense. Maybe the trenches. Maybe they'll be fixated on the
I'd watch the center, right? I mean, Garrett Bradbury is a free agent. John Michael Schmitz is going to be a long-time pro, so I would keep an eye on the center.
Bradbury's gonna get paid somewhat. Not like, you know, he's not going to get like top 3 center money, but if the season ended today, he'd be, I believe, the 9th highest graded center in PFF. Mm-hmm. He's been fine. And our guy Alex Boone broke down on the Trenches with Boone episode of Purple Daily 2 days ago. A great play. It was the Cousins throw that set the Vikings up at the 2-yard line. He just threw a dime.
Yeah, the one to Jefferson, right?
Yeah, to Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those brilliant throws I was referencing, yeah.
On that play, as Boone explained it, my football knowledge has gone from like a 2.5 to a 3 because of Alex Boone on a scale of 1 to 10. So on the left side of the line, as you're the Vikings, the Bills defensive lineman ran what's called a twist. And so Bradbury had to pick up the interior defensive lineman to start with, moving to his left. And then coming across his face was the edge rusher. And he has to flip his hips, go all the way back. So he actually took out 2 guys on that play.
Football.
With great athleticism to give Kirk the time he needed to find Justin Jefferson. It was one of the highlights of the season, Garrett Bradbury. So go check that out.
Who knew being in a contract year would be this uber motivator for him, right? The Vikings declined the 5th-year option, so he'll be a free agent in March. Yeah, I mean, he's been brilliant this year.
I shudder to ask here, but are those Twins uniforms that are floating around Twitter, are those the uniforms? I actually don't hate them.
Doogie told me on Tuesday, he don't care about this.
I don't care. I get it. There's an audience for it. I will be there. I'll be at Mall of America tomorrow. So
you and Royce both there, bonding.
Like, I understand it. I'll cover it. I'll do my due diligence.
Yeah, you do your job.
I haven't dug Phil. I haven't even seen. To be truthful, like I'm going to go to Twitter right now. Do you have a Twitter address where I can look at?
I'll just send it to you.
Or just put it up on the screen. Yeah, DM me. Okay. I have not seen what's floating
While
around.
you're doing that, Doogie, tell
But
Phil.
they've done promotional pictures. Like, trust me, it's not hard for these jerseys to leak. So, just in general, it wouldn't shock me, but I have not seen what's out there.
Hey, Darren, while you're doing that, tell Phil your Emilio Pagan steam.
And while you do that, Dex, if you could go wide on me here. I know this is a janky way to put this up on
I don't
the
mind the
YouTube screen,
home.
but
I don't mind the white. I'm not a huge fan of the other one.
I don't know if these are. I was told
I like the
fairly
stirrups.
reliably that these are
Yes,
probably
the stirrups. The players are not going to like that.
Stirrups are great.
I think
Now,
the
they're
players are
not
gonna
doing
like
the
it.
City Edition tomorrow, right? They're one of the
don't know.
City Edition teams for 2023.
They are.
Those will come out later. Yeah, I'm with you,
okay.
Judd. The home ones look okay. The road ones, whatever.
Seem pretty pedestrian
Not bothered,
to
but
me.
doesn't do a whole lot for me.
Does bother me.
All right, so on Emilio Pagan. So tomorrow is the deadline. Will the Twins tender him or not? Like, there are some easy decisions, right? Louis Arise and Caleb Thielbar, Tyler Malley. The two questions, Emilio Pagan and Gio Urshela. Kyle Garlick was a question, too. The Twins gave him a take it or leave it. Like, if he didn't take that 1 year, $750,000 offer the other day, the Twins were not going to tender Kyle Garlick. So they put a take it or leave it contract on the table for him. On Pagan, there have been some loose discussions about a multi-year deal. Now, when I say multi-year, the Twins would have the hammer in 2024. It would be a team option. So it would really just be guaranteed money 2023. Then if the Twins wanted to part ways after next season, they could. There is no movement on an Emilio Pagan 1 year plus a team option contract. I do not foresee that getting done. So the question is, will the Twins tender Pagan or not tender Pagan? But clearly, there is some interest in retaining his services. Now, it could be as simple as, let's tender him because we really believe we can trade him. There were teams, I was told the Dodgers were one of the teams. There were teams that called the Twins late July, early August, before the trade deadline to inquire about Pagan. And I get it, the trade deadline a different time than the winter, right? There's only a certain amount of relievers you can chase if you're a team chasing a reliever in late July. But the Dodgers were one of the teams interested in Pagan. But the Twins still feel like his stuff can play to some extent. Now, most relievers throw 95, 96, right? But they feel like that there's a pretty good pitcher there. We can debate whether there's a good pitcher there, but the Twins, there's enough people internally that feel like there's something there. There's something they can salvage, but I'm not putting it past them to either just not tender him, because this regime is not big on paying relievers millions of dollars. I mean, you could tender him, then not ultimately be able to trade him, and you'd be on the hook for around $4 million. Are you really paying Emilio Pagan $4 million in 2023? That's hard to envision. So I'll be chasing more information later this week. But do know there was at least one conversation, the Twins throwing out the idea, the parameters of a 2023 contract, locking him in, then having a team option for 2024.
Okay. I'm going to put this into context for the people here, okay? In 1986, Bert Blyleven set the major league record, giving up 50 home runs in 270, the most home runs ever allowed in a single season. Now, he also was like a strikeout artist and was a Hall of Fame pitcher and had all the other things to go along with it. But he gave up 50 home runs in 271 innings. The last two seasons, Emilio Pagan has given up 28 home runs in 126 innings. If you take that and extrapolate it, if you draw it out to 271 innings, Emilio Pagan would give up 60 home runs in the same number of innings that Bert Blyleven pitched. I don't know what they see in the analytics. Well, you guys don't understand. If you look at his horizontal spin rate or whatever, it's like at some point, don't the results? I know I'm just like yelling at clouds here, but
yes, the results matter.
Don't the results speak?
Yes.
They're basically telling you, no, the process will straighten out the results at some point. I'm like, are you sure? I don't know.
I hear you. The easy decision should be, right, you non-tender. Let him hit the open market. And heck, if you wanted to try to re-sign him in a month, it's not like you can't, but you shouldn't be on the hook for just about $4 million. That's what he'll be due in arbitration. It's somewhere in that neighborhood, whether it's 3.8, 3.9, 4.1, but I can't imagine like committing that sort of money to Emilio Pagan.
Super weird.
What's the
Good
scheme on
dude, though, by the
Urshela,
way. Like,
Doogie?
I'll give him credit. Like, he was always stand up. Like, you know, after those games against Cleveland, everything, like, he always
cares?
answered questions. So, for whatever that's worth,
Who
but
cares?
just about as good a guy. Like, he was never a disruption in the clubhouse. Good teammate, all those things. But, yeah, it's hard
Good
to envision
friend.
him committing $4 million. Yeah.
Lousy pitcher. What's
Yeah.
the steam on Urshela?
Well, there hasn't been any dialogue. So the Twins have not approached the Gio camp, I'm told, on any sort of, hey, can we compromise? Like, we don't want to pay you $9 million, but can we do what we did with Kyle Garlick? There hasn't been any talk like that. There hasn't been any talk about a multi-year deal. The thing is, like, to me, you need third base open for Jose Miranda. And so I like the idea of Gio Urshela being here in 2023, but $9 million, now that's not an absurd number.
Yeah.
But, like, if he's not an everyday player, I don't know how you commit $9 million to Gio. So right now, maybe it's more an educated guess, Judd. I lean more toward them not tendering him than tendering him, but that's another thing on my radar here to chase the next 24 to 32 hours. But I can tell you, as I sit here on Thursday morning at 10:37 a.m. Central Time, there hasn't been any chatter, the Urshela camp with the Twins.
He's a good player, but at a certain point, if you're going to have, and I know there's not a salary cap, but like the Twins are going to be a league average payroll at most, and so you got to be careful committing like, $9 million to a 31-year-old. That's fine, but he's not a needle moving player. I would also say, and I don't think they're going to re-sign Correa, but if they have plans to make a competitive offer to Carlos Correa, don't you then need third base open for Royce Lewis?
Well, that too. So, I mean, to me, you need third base open. Now, the comeback to all this is you tender Urshela because if you look at the landscape of the third base free agent market, it's not super appealing. So if you're the Twins, you could say, you know what, let's tender Urshela because we know we can trade him.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
fair.
if they do tender him, keep an eye on that. But I lean right now that in the event that trade talks just haven't moved, that you need third base open, that you can't commit because you need to be willing to. If you can't trade the guy, you got to be willing to commit to having him on the roster in 2023, paying him over $9 million. That's why I lean a little bit more in the direction of I can see the Twins non-tendering him.
Yeah. All right, rapid fire scoops here, Dukes. Empty the bag here for us.
Well, on Correa, I mean, I laid it out on Tuesday, Phil. The sense remains the Twins are going to make the richest offer in team history. Now, when I say that, the richest offer right now is what? Joe Mauer, $184 million. So they could merely offer, I say merely, $185 million, right? But you're not getting Carlos Correa for $185 million. Like, he's not signing, he's 28. He's not signing a 4 or 5 year deal. He wants
He's
7,
Dior.
8,
He's Dior.
9 years with player options after a couple of the years. He wants no trade power, right? The Twins are willing to do all that. Like, I have been told, like, no trade, that's fine. A player option after, like, the 24 season, okay. I don't think the Twins are giving him a player option after 23. But after 24, okay. A player option after 26 or 27, okay. Right? The question is, are they willing to go as high as 250, 260, 270, maybe even higher? That remains to be seen. But I am told the Twins would like to retain him. They know what it'll take. They will make him the richest offer in team history. And they would like closure sooner rather than later, Phil. Now it takes two to tango, right? If you're Correa, if you're his agent Scott, like, you don't really do anything real fast. And so this thing absolutely could extend into January. But the Twins would like some closure sooner rather than later.
I can already hear fans. I guess you just said the Twins know what it will take. And I can already hear the cynical, probably correct fans saying, all right, they know what it will take. So they will offer something slightly less than that to Carlos Correa.
Yeah, I mean, because we've seen it. There's a history, right?
Yeah, there is.
With this ownership group, maybe more so dad, not kids, but Like, you think back to, Torrey Hunter when he went to the Angels, any number of examples, right?
Torrey's like, I want 5 years, $15 million. Twins are like, sounds good. How about 3?
Yeah, they offered him $345. He ends up getting what, $575, $580 from the Angels. That was like a Thanksgiving deal too, way back when, right?
It was Thanksgiving night. It went down.
Yeah, it's not against the rules to do something right now, right? I mean, I get it. Baseball free agency is a slow play, but you're allowed to sign guys right now. This thing doesn't need to extend for many, many weeks. But just know that the Twins have all sorts of interest in re-signing Carlos Correa. Some other notes: Jamison Battle of the Gophers will not play tonight against Central Michigan. I was told the foot that he had surgery on a couple weeks ago, there's still some pain there. My hope is he can be back playing by November 28th. That's the next kind of big Gophers game, the game against Virginia Tech. I would hope he could be back by then, but out tonight and still dealing with some pain. We saw on Monday against DePaul how much they missed Jamison Battle. The Timberwolves had scouting representation at some college games. Well, last night, Iowa, Seton Hall. A couple nights ago, Michigan State against Kentucky, Duke against Kansas. The Wolves do have a second-round pick in June. They have the Knicks' second-round pick.
Great stuff, Doogie. This was quite the scoop session today.
Reckless speculation.
We'll catch you next week, man. Go enjoy your photo shoot or whatever you're doing, your little promo video.
I'm not even quite sure. Some sort of holiday
good,
something.
Darren.
I may have like a 3-second line, so I'll find out in a little bit.
Slow motion
Looking
through
good.
the snow, riding a sleigh. It's going to be great.
When you need the scoops, it's time for Doogie. Just a big ice cream barrel and a scoop.
Inside information about your
See you,
favorite
boys.
Minnesota sports
bye.
teams. That's Darren Doogie Wilson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and the Scoop Podcast. Woof! Gonna need to take a deep breath after
Cigarette.
that
Give me a
session.
Marlboro Red.
I've never smoked a
great.
cigarette till today. After that, okay, let's continue here on this Mackie and Judd, this reckless speculation.